All right, so I'll start things off as always, citing my sources. I used Wikipedia, SBI Soccer, Columbus Crew at Kansas City Wizards, Match Night Commentary by Yves Galarsa, and then also a blog post by Steve Sark called Brian McBride, Columbus, and the Crew. So there are hot starts to seasons, and then there's winning 6 of your first 7 games to start off the year. The team to accomplish this feat would be the 2008 Columbus Crew, but we're not here to focus on their regular season performance. Yes, Jim Mora, we're talking about the playoffs. With all that said, we really should do a quick recap of the regular season to set the stage for the playoffs. The Crew were heading into the season looking to rebound after not making the playoffs in 2007. The team was headlined by players like Guillermo Barros Schelotto and Alejandro Moreno, as well as some younger guys on the come up like Chad Marshall and Brad Evans. As mentioned before, the season couldn't have started any better with the team making a statement by winning 6 of their first 7 games. If there's one thing I've learned from my time doing MLS history, it's that teams love to go on good and bad runs. Consistency be damned. In that exact fashion, the Crew followed this terrific start with a terrible one that saw them get 2 wins in 10 games. I think at this point, you all know what's coming next. The Crew followed this up with a 9-game unbeaten streak that saw them win 7 of those 9. When the Crew were hot, they were unstoppable this season, and these amazing runs of form are what landed them the 2008 Supporter Shield, finishing 11 points clear in the Eastern Conference of second place Chicago Fire. This meant that they would be facing off against the KC Wiz in the first round of the playoffs. Now, anyone who's seen the 2008 standings might be confused as to why they didn't get matched up against New York Red Bulls, who finished below the KC Wiz. Because MLS, that's why. Andrew will probably go into more details about Red Bull's playoff run, but because only 3 teams made the playoffs from the Western Conference, the Red Bulls were considered a Western Conference playoff team. Never change, MLS. Never change. Anyway, the first round is a home and away, best score in aggregate moves on. So the first leg was to be played in Kansas City. Boy, did this seem like an exciting game. The second half is where all the action takes place, and it starts in the 53rd minute when Davy Arnaud gives the Wiz the lead and a great opportunity to make the most of the home advantage. The Wiz would maintain the lead well, but boy, did it get much more difficult. In the 75th minute, Herculez Gomez of the KC Wiz would get a straight red card to put the Wiz down to 10 men. As described by SBI, Robbie Rogers came on Gomez on a clean tackle, and when Gino Padula raced in to get the ball, Gomez stuck the leg out late and caught him. Golarsup's instant reaction was that the straight red was harsh and probably should have been a yellow. However, he would later come back and say that on another look, he felt that the red was more justified. Do with that information what you will, Wiz and Crew fans. Nonetheless, the Wiz were down to 10 with 15 minutes plus stoppage time left to hold their lead. Stoppage time begins and the Wiz still have the lead. The finish line is in sight. However, in front of the home crowd, heartbreak strikes as the Crew's Steven Lennart taps in a loose ball in the 92nd minute to level the score for Columbus. The score would end 1-1, and the Crew would be in a much better shape heading back to Columbus, where they had to feel confident about moving on to the next round. And feel confident they did, as they would take down the Wiz at home 2-0 to move on to the conference finals 3-1 on aggregate. The conference finals would see them take on the Chicago Fire. From here on, all rounds are decided by 1 game, meaning that since the Crew were the higher seed in the playoffs, they were able to host this game, which will take us to Columbus Crew Stadium. As mentioned earlier, the Fire finished second in the East and third in the Shield, so this was not a team you could take lightly, especially since neither side could find a win in their 2 matchups in the regular season. The Fire would get things started in the 29th minute when Cuauhtemoc Blanco would take a quick throw-in to find Justin Mapp down the left flank. Mapp would cross the ball into the box and find who else but Columbus Crew legend Brian McBride, who heads it home to give the Fire the lead. McBride does give a bit of a celebration after scoring, but nothing too over the top. However, you can also hear during the clip the announcer talking about how McBride has been booed throughout the night. So this goal is definitely not going to help his image with the fans. Now, the reason for the boos could possibly be explained by a section in a blog post made by Steve Sirk, where he talks about McBride making the decision to come back to MLS after his spell with Fulham. Fans were seemingly upset at McBride's decision not to come back to the Crew, but instead go to their rival Chicago Fire, with the reason being that he wanted to play for his hometown team. It likely hurt all the more, as Sirk discusses how McBride almost came back to Columbus in 2007 to become their first ever designated player. However, he was able to get a new contract from Fulham, which kept him there for another year. So when the sides met up in the Eastern Conference Finals, he was booed and also put on a wanted poster tifo, with his crime being treason. According to Cirque, McBride was a good sport about it and understood where their anger was coming from and held no grudge against the fans. I think with time, the Crew fans have also gotten over it and remember him very fondly now. So halftime rolls around, and the Crew are 45 minutes away from elimination. Someone is going to need to step up and make something happen. After halftime, the Crew would waste no time getting themselves back in the game. In the 48th minute, Eddie Gavin draws a foul down the right side, giving the Crew a free kick in a decent spot. There's one man you don't want standing over the ball, and that's GBS, the assist king. After everyone is set, GBS crosses the ball into the box towards Chad Marshall, who is one-on-one with the defender. Marshall rises up, clear of the defender, to hit a powerful header off the crossbar and past firekeeper John Bush to make it 1-1. Now, I've been purposely vague about who said fire defender is, because of course it was none other than Brian McBride, the Crew legend we were just talking about before. Sweet revenge for the Crew fans in attendance who had to watch him score against his former side earlier in the game. Columbus now had the momentum carrying them, with plenty of time still left in this game to find a winner. Despite having plenty of time, Columbus would waste none of it, as in the 55th minute, Alejandro Moreno intelligently heads a bouncing ball into the path of Eddie Gavin, who was sitting on the shoulder of the defense. The header was perfectly placed and allowed Gavin to take a touch with his left and finish with his right to put the Crew up 2-1. Despite a late onslaught from the Fire, they would never test Hesmer too much, allowing the Crew to hold on and move to the MLS Finals, where they would face off against legendary Western Conference opponents, the New York Red Bulls.